Hi everyone, we're here today with Ocean Quigley, who a lot of you may know, who was the art director, I believe, on the games such as SimCity, Sims, and other various projects, Maxis. Now he is working on a new game called Atomic Space Command, which we've posted a little bit about on Twitter and on the website. And we're just going to kind of have a little chat about what he's done in the past, what he's doing now, and a bit about his new game. So thank you very much for doing this interview.
My
Really
my pleasure,
appreciate that.
Dan. Yeah, I
Um,
appreciate it too.
um, for those who maybe don't know, could you introduce yourself and kind of just say who
Sure.
you are and
So,
what you do?
some background. The name is Ocean Quigley, and that's actually my name. My parents are crazy hippies, and I I've been working in video games for a long time, like since the 1990s. I started working on like the Sega Saturn adaptation of SimCity 2000. So I didn't work on SimCity 2000 itself, but I worked on like the ports for
Oh
it, and
wow.
then I was the art director on a bunch of early Maxis games like Streets of SimCity and SimCopter, and then I was art director for SimCity 3000, which was the first one that was really my responsibility.
My
Uh,
first SimCity game, that one.
that was a good project. And then I worked on SimCity 4. I was the art director and creative director for that. And also on The Sims and The Sims 2. On The Sims, I did the all the neighborhood stuff
Oh
and a
cool.
bunch of the architecture and build stuff. And even though it's a little bit ancient history now, for The Sims 1, we had to do all kinds of crazy rendering tricks to display stuff as complicated as a house full of people. And
Oh wow.
so I did a bunch of the initial design along with Don Hopkins for how that stuff would
Ah.
render. So we had a really, for its time, clever mixed mode 2D, 3D technique where we would put down things like walls and floors and chairs, and we'd put the depth information down with those as sprites, and then the characters would depth sort and animate against those static objects. Because you have to remember that was before 3D cards, and it was
Mm.
really a challenge to do almost anything.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
and then SimCity 4 came along, and that was kind of the that was in many ways my favorite project. Kind of the culmination of a childhood desire to build giant model train
Mm.
worlds, in the grandparents' basement. And and then I art directed and did a whole bunch of creative direction on Spore, which was Will Wright's magnum opus game there. And so I did all the
My
kind of the
younger brother absolutely loves Spore.
oh, cool. Yeah, it's got some magic to it. I mean, I think the game as a whole didn't really gel, but there's magical components to it. Like
Mm.
the ability to make creatures and skin them and texture them, and then
Absolutely.
see them move around was just fantastic. And we did all kinds of clever, creative stuff with world creation and building model solar systems and stuff with procedural architecture and letting players create buildings. And so there's a lot of magic in there. And that was a weird game to work on as an art director because typically in games as an art director, you're working with artists and you're telling the artists to make it look like this.
Yeah.
But with a game like Spore, and this is kind of true with The Sims as well, you're making systems for people to play with rather than
Mm.
making art for them to look at. And so you have to, in a sense, build tools that let players make the art themselves instead of giving them completed art to look at. You're saying, okay, here's a bunch of paintbrushes, and let's make sure the paintbrushes work.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and so those were a bunch of projects, and then I did the art direction and a whole bunch of the kind of visual styling and interactions for the most recent SimCity, the 2013 SimCity. So that was my last big project at Maxis. I did some other projects that were just more experimental that didn't actually come out, or that were just
Mm.
sort of internal. But the last big project that I did at Maxis was the SimCity that came out in 2013.
Oh, okay. That's still my favorite SimCity to date, which seems to be a varied opinion between some people. But
Sure, and
I
probably a minority opinion. I think the game
mm,
obviously had train wreck scale problems when it came out. That
Yeah, it did have a few issues.
you think?
I don't know what it is about it, but I just really like if I play that game, I will be there hours later still playing it. Just if I play it, I have to do a really long session.
Yeah. We really poured so much attention into all the styling and details of that game. I mean, trying to figure out how to make it look like all the buildings had little insides with lights that come on and off, and I mean all this stuff that it was just a wonderful art project. The
Absolutely.
creating the sort of the stylings and techniques for doing a whole city. I did a talk at the Game Developers Conference on the art and techniques that we invented for that SimCity, and that's online.
Okay, awesome.
It gives you kind of an overview of the grab bag of kind of stuff that we did to do all the stuff, and it's a little bit of a heartbreak that the server fiasco ended the way that it did because it turned
Yeah.
so many people off of the game, but. At some point, you just have to say, "Well, it's pretty."
Yeah, that is a shame that happened because I know at the time I didn't have internet, so I was kind of like, oh, okay, I can't play it, neither can anybody else right now. But
Right.
it was I I think there's still I think there's a group of people that still really do enjoy it, but obviously, like you say, some people did get a bit turned off
Yeah, of course,
because of that.
and reasonably so.
Mm.
It was just the kind of one of the things that one of the compromises that we had to make the game at all. But
Okay.
that's just how it is.
Okay. So by like compromise, did it like was that like a requirement? Like it had to be like connected in
Yes,
some way?
yeah, of course.
Okay.
That was the whole larger vision that EA had for it was this sort of always connected thing that would be a platform so that you sort of continually be connected to it, and it would be just sort of part of it. It would be just a platform that you play against that you'd be continually growing and stuff like that, which
Okay.
was, I mean, fine if that's what they want to do. It's it was kind of external to the game itself, though.
Yeah.
And as designers and art director on it, I was like, well, let's see if we can do anything valuable with that. Um, and
Okay.
so if that's kind of how the game's going to be, but yeah, we worked against it, and it had to be that way. But in retrospect, it would have
Yeah.
been so much better not to have done that and just say, well, no, it's a game. You can play the game if you
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah, that is a shame that it wasn't at least at launch. I mean, there is now, but at least it's a shame that launch there wasn't an offline ability because then that would have probably gone round some of the issues
Yeah,
that
of
was
course.
there. But I think that's one of the things that draws me to it, strangely enough, because I used to play The Sims Online when that was a
Oh,
thing,
sure, yeah.
and I think I really enjoy being able to play with other people with that game. And while that's still up, it's quite cool to be able to be like, okay, I'm doing this in my city. How's that affecting them? So
Right.
like crimes coming through to my city and all that, and then I end up shouting at them saying, "No, stop that, please!
Right.
You're ruining my game."
And there is something magical about seeing the neighboring cities emerge in the
Mm,
distance as well. Yeah, so there was again there was a bunch of magic to it, and it's a pity that it didn't come off as cleanly as we'd hoped because
yeah,
I think the game otherwise was pretty successful.
absolutely.
But yeah, that's already getting far enough back in time that I'm struggling to remember the details of it.
Okay. Okay. Hope this isn't too far back in time. Do you remember what kind of like inspired you to get involved in the video game industry when when you first got thought I want to do this in video games?
Sure. Yeah, it actually goes way back, kind of absurdly far back. I remember as a kid, as a little kid, seeing the movie Tron when it came out in
Mm,
theaters, uh, and and then a little bit after that, I my grandmother worked at a university, and I went to
okay.
visit her, and she took me to the computer lab just to show off some cool stuff, and the uh, in the computer lab they had a early Evans and Sutherland 3D graphics workstation, and they had a 3D model, a wireframe model that must have been like 100 polygons of the space shuttle tumbling
Okay.
around. And they also had a console playing that old early video game called Space War. And so in my, I don't know, my 7-year-old brain or whatever, I put all these together into one thing, and I was saying, well, imagine that you're going to eventually have environments like Tron, uh, with 3D models like this space shuttle, but you'll be able to play games like Space War. And so,
Mm.
uh, so I kind of, as a result of that, had a sort of a vision of where this was all going to go, um, way before any of it was a real thing. Before
Yeah.
this is kind of back in the Atari 2600 days.
Okay.
And but at the time, the computers were nowhere near powerful enough, especially at the consumer level, to do any of that. And so
Mm.
I just did fine art stuff, learned how to paint and draw
Okay.
and do sculpture, and then I got a Commodore 64. Taught myself how to program with it, and did some early kind of really crude computer graphics with a program called Sculpt, and then just sort of simultaneously did the computer graphics and the game stuff along with painting and drawing ever since. I mean, even now, as I talk to you, I'm in my studio, which half of
Oh,
it
very
is
nice.
oil paintings and easels and palettes, and the other half is all workstations
Oh, wow.
and monitors, and that's kind of how um, I like to be. Spend half the time or a third of the time doing traditional media, doing oil paints, portraits and still lives and stuff like that, and the rest of the time writing shaders and doing 3D modeling and animation and writing simple games and stuff like that.
Oh,
So
awesome.
it's all just part of the same sort of creative urge, I guess.
Mm. That's always one thing I wish I could do is draw or paint. I occasionally watch the like Bob Ross if
Yeah,
ever
sure,
that's on,
of
and
course.
I'm always watching it thinking, oh, that'd be awesome if I could do that. And I think I should try that, but I can barely draw like a stick
It is
figure.
it is pretty fun. I mean, I remember in art school I had this realization though that art that painting had kind of had this golden age back in, I don't know, 300 years ago, 400 years ago with the Dutch, and we're still looking at and admiring all these paintings by Rembrandt, for example,
Mm.
and in a lot of ways those paintings haven't ever been surpassed. And by contrast with computer games and just using sort of computers and interactivity as an art form, this is still really early days. We're kind of in our golden age right now. Like we're
Yeah.
doing stuff that hundreds of years from now people will look back at as being kind of our own little renaissance. And so I decided when I was in art school that was kind of the more, I don't know, the more vital, the more exciting, the more active thing to work on than straight up traditional oil painting, because you could participate in the founding of a whole new art form. So
Mm,
that
that's
that,
true.
that was really exciting.
Oh, that's quite cool because it's crazy when you look back at how say games were even like 10, 15 years ago,
Yeah,
and then look
totally.
at some of the things that companies are making now, and it's just crazy. I mean, now we're moving to things like virtual reality, and it's just crazy.
Yeah,
It-
it's not
it's
it's not really slowing down either. I mean,
mm,
the capabilities of the hardware and what you can actually do and build, I mean, have just gone through the roof. And that's kind of exciting for me as an art director and a creator too, because it used to be that you struggled to get anything of any visual complexity on screen at all, and now, I mean, you've got so much horsepower. And it used to be that that anything you wanted to do, you needed to work with engineers to build engines to do, and just
yeah.
getting a polygon up on screen was a huge project. And now with Unreal and Unity, and now like the Lumberyard engine from Amazon,
Okay, yeah.
I mean, this stuff is just like download it from the internet, and like an hour later you're making stuff
Yeah.
without having to go through like the months of pain that it used to be to do it.
It's really cool that all those tools are available, and like I guess for, like you say, someone in your position being able to try all these new things and see what you can do on those platforms is
Yeah,
really awesome, I imagine.
yeah, totally. And the tools as well. I mean, not to harp on this, but the tools too, like um, the early 3D tools were just terrible. And modern 3D tools like ZBrush, or I use Modo a lot, or Maya, or even the current
Okay.
incarnations of 3D Studio Max, they're just so powerful. If you know what you're doing, you can essentially be like a studio production house by yourself. Or small teams can do what it used to take giant armies to do.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Crazy in
so
a good
that's
way.
yeah, so it's a great time to be a creator. I mean, there's the tools and capabilities uh, and the ability to reach an audience are like nothing ever before. I mean, it's a wonderful time for that.
I can imagine. Um, Going back to a bit about like Maxis, do you remember how you first heard about Maxis or got involved at that studio? Because I imagine when you joined, it was before it was like under EA's wing and things like that.
Yeah, it was a pretty small independent studio. I got into the games business because I was working for this company called Prima Publishing that made hint guides for books. So this is
Ah,
so this is kind of so this is before the internet, and so if you wanted to beat, I don't know, Sega, if you wanted to beat Sonic the Hedgehog, for example, you'd
yeah.
or beat Myst or Seventh Guest or any one of these games, then you'd go to the bookstore and you'd buy these books from Prima Publishing,
Mm,
and they hooked me up with all these different developers because I was doing all the illustrations for the books, doing like the graphics for the books and stuff like
yeah.
that. So I met like I don't know Rand and Robin Miller, the guys who were making Myst, and I met uh, Graham Devine, who was working on like Seventh Guest, uh, and did a bunch of stuff with guys doing X-wing and Tie Fighter and all these kind of games of that era. But the coolest game of all that we did the hint guide for was SimCity 2000, and so I got to meet and hang out with Will Wright, and a bunch of the other people at
Oh,
Maxis
awesome.
because I was doing this hint guide for SimCity 2000, and I kind of had this thought that boy, it's a steady job doing all the graphics for these hint guides, but what these guys over here are doing with the games themselves are just, I mean, it's so much cooler.
Yeah.
So as soon as the as soon as that hint guide was done, I basically took my portfolio together and went to Will and said, "Hey, so you need some 3D artists," and in fact, they did.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, speaking of, you mentioned Myst as a game amongst that. I think The Sims went on to over like beat that in sales eventually, and become the number one selling PC game for quite a long time. Did you guys ever like imagine how much impact a game like that would have on the video game industry? Because I mean, things
No,
like
man, that
Si-
was a total surprise. It's still a little surprising, actually, because when we did it, it was Will's experimental project, and we
mm,
thought that it would find passionate people who loved the game and wanted to play the game. So it was worth working on. But it was, if you look at like our E3 booth when we released The Sims, it was just like a little corner of the bigger EA booth. Like it was not a big deal.
yeah,
Uh, and I remember reading some of the press about it after E3, and everybody was saying, "So this weird little game that Will's working on is kind of the most interesting game of the whole show." And we're like, "Yeah, it was, but we didn't think anybody would notice." And
yeah,
um, it kind of blew us away with its appeal and how much people loved it. I think it's a little surprising to me that even now there's no real contender
mm,
uh, for alternate kind of life simulation games. I mean, it seems like it's a whole genre, like I don't
yeah,
know, like first-person shooters or RTSs or whatever. That there's only one game in. You know, if you look at every other genre, there's like
yeah.
competing titles for it, and it's always struck me as being a little surprising that that with The Sims we created this thing that is, I mean, beloved and is huge and sort
Absolutely.
of stands by itself still.
Absolutely. I mean, I found The Sims with SimCity 3000 in my dad's computer desk. I stole it and never gave it back. Um, and from there, that is like the one game that I've always been just or franchise I've just been absolutely just hooked on because, like you were saying about tools earlier, you can just do whatever you want to do, which is kind of the game never ends, so you always have new things to do,
Yeah.
and you can just kind of express your creativity in the way you want to, which is really I think one of the selling points. But like you said, it is a bit crazy thinking about it that The Sims doesn't actually have like a competitor or anything, which is that's actually quite weird. I haven't really
Yeah.
thought about that much. I suppose things like SimCity's got like skylines now.
Oh, sure.
That seems to have took off and took everyone by storm, which is crazy because I don't think people expected
No, no,
that to.
that was I'm good for them. That was kind of an amazing development. And yeah, there've been lots of other games that people have done about sort of world creation and city building and town building and stuff like that. But people not so much.
No, it's a bit weird that. I've been playing a lot of Sims 1 as well recently. I've just kind of been like reliving everything and enjoying all the nostalgic things. It's
And this
always fun to go back.
the sound design for that game was pretty good too. And in fact, one of the people who did the sound design for The Sims, the Kent Jolly was the guy who did like a lot of that initial sound design, and then sound design for like The Sims 2, and for that matter, sound design for SimCity 3000 and SimCity 4, and the most recent SimCity. He and I actually left to start this new studio,
Oh
so
yes.
we've got this connection to all those old games.
Oh no, that's quite awesome. I mean, the sound on that game is, and all those other games is great. I mean, Jerry Martin's soundtrack on The Sims 1,
Yeah,
even the small
yes,
sound effects as well. I mean, the
his
sound it used to make when a burglar came used to scare me so much.
yeah, yeah, it was really brilliant sound design, and I like the like for SimCity 4, we kind of went with this kind of Gershwin-y sort of soundtrack, which I thought was
Mm.
also quite lovely.
No, I love the soundtracks. Like the Sims, the latest SimCity, SimCity 4, and they're always really great whenever I'm trying to study for uni exams. So I always just
Right.
play them and just kind of zone out. It's crazy. Um, with the Sims as well, have you actually had a chance to try anything like Sims 3 or Sims 4?
Oh, I've played them a bit, but I haven't played them intensely. Nothing like as intensely as I played the original Sims and then the Sims 2. When you when you build them, you kind of have a different relationship to them than you
Yeah,
do as a player. And so I played the Sims 3 and the Sims 4 mostly just to see well how they changed and how they
yeah,
transformed, but not as a sort of a hardcore player. Like, oh, that's how they did the graphics for that. That's cool. You know, on the Sims 2, I did all this stuff with the architecture design, with the
okay,
roofs and the decks and pools and stuff like that. And so those user creativity tools were kind of my focus of it. And so, of course, I
yeah,
wanted to see what they wound up doing with the. And you have to keep in mind as well that by the time you got Sims 3 and Sims 4, they weren't just little teams of 20 or 30 people working
mm,
on them. They were giant, like huge, multi-hundred people teams. And so you just was, well, what did they all do? You can't keep track of it all in the same way that you can when it's a
mm.
group of people that can all sort of fit in one big room with each other.
No, I suppose that's true. Yeah. It's crazy as well. I suppose the Sims team originally must have been quite small when you compare it to maybe what the Sims studio have
Oh
now
yeah, yeah, of course,
for a team. It's
yeah.
quite cool to see how it progresses and the more people that are working on it. So you've gone indie now, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah. Kent Jolly, the sound designer, and another guy, Timothy Johnson, and I have started a new studio called No You Shut Up Games, and it's a little indie studio in Berkeley, California,
Oh, very
uh,
nice.
and we're doing the major game that we're doing is Atomic Space Command, and
Yes.
that's a game that's a kind of a arcadey space simulation where you construct a spaceship with your friends, and so there's a bunch of kind of Spore stuff coming out of
Ah,
that. You
awesome.
construct a spaceship and you lay out engines and reactors and life support and stuff like that, and then you and your friends as a team as a crew take it out into combat. You fly it out into an arena and you do battle, trying to claim planets and build bases on them against the other team. So you might have three or four spaceships on your team, each one of which has got a crew of some number of people. And you have three or four spaceships on the other team, each one of which has got a crew of people on it. And you're different people are managing different parts of the spaceship. So somebody might be
Mm,
running the engines, and somebody else might be flying it, and somebody else might be when you get close to a planet claiming it and building base components on it, and so forth. And so
okay.
it's kind of a big game of capture the flag with simulated spaceships, with crews of people on them as teams.
Okay. That is quite a cool idea. So with it being teams, you can still play like by yourself, I imagine as well.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
yeah.
So we've made spaceships that are like the default size right now that we've got is kind of a spaceship that maybe that you can run yourself, but it runs a lot better with 3 people on it.
Okay.
And then there'll also be smaller spaceships that are single manned that you just build by yourself in your hangar and then go and fly into combat with. And
Awesome.
we'll probably have, we haven't done it yet, but we'll probably have bigger ships as well that might have, I don't know, half a dozen or 7 or 8 people on them. So we're gonna support sort of small teams and individuals and also large teams. The game is just tons of fun when you're playing locally with other people because you're essentially yelling at each other. Like, get the shields up, or a mine chasing us, shoot it, shoot it, shoot it. So the it's kind of got, right now it's actually got kind of a party game quality to it, which was a little bit surprising to me.
Oh, that's great. It's quite good as well. Like I mentioned earlier with SimCity playing online, I quite enjoy games where you are, say, like on Skype with some friends and doing things together like that. So that might be quite a good one to try out with a few people.
Yeah. With our alpha build, which people can download and play right now, we just yesterday got internet play up. So we just spun up a server, and with the build that we're going to push out on Thursday, for the first time, people will be able to play with or against other people. Up until now, it's all been LAN play only, which has been a lot easier to implement, but sort of sucks if you want to play with people who aren't actually in your house.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and so that's up. The game is still really rough. I mean, we're not even up to alpha yet. The game isn't even feature complete yet. So there's a ton of stuff to do. But we're just, I'm actually just, I don't know if this is a good idea, but I'm just trying it out as a development process. Typically, when you work in a big studio, everything's totally secret, and you reveal stuff through marketing in the month before you actually ship. But for us, just to see what it would be like to do the opposite, we're kind of doing all this development in public and letting people play the alpha build, even though it's not anywhere near feature complete, just to see what people respond to and what people like. And it's been kind of interesting compared to doing development in secrecy.
Yeah, I suppose it's quite a different experience when you're used to doing it, say, with EA compared to letting people see everything you're doing. It is quite cool, though, to be able to get, say, we've just done this, what do you think, get feedback, and I guess apply that to the process going forward.
To see what people respond to and what people like and what they don't like. I mean, that's the kind of one of the advantages of being a small team and not being beholden to a giant company, is that you can listen to your customers much more directly and not have to go through layers of marketing and public relations.
Absolutely. It's definitely, I think, quite a cool idea to do that. So I hope that really pays off in that respect, getting people involved in that way. In terms of doing like a space simulation, what inspired the team to go down that route?
Part of it was at Maxis, I'd experimented with games like Spore, for example, that were first and foremost games of player creativity.
Yes.
And with a game like Spore and some other games that we sort of experimented with, it was kind of cool and kind of easy to come up with wonderful tools for players to create things with, and then more of a problem to try and figure out what you do with those things once you've had them. So with Spore, it was really wonderful to make creatures, but then the gameplay around creatures was a little bit lackluster. And it was fun to make spaceships, but then the spaceships that you made didn't actually mean all that much to the game. And so with this game, I decided to turn that on its head and to say, okay, it's going to be a game where you're taking the spaceships and you're competing with other teams on spaceships in a solar system. And so the thing that you're doing with it is super duper clear. Like you're going to combat, you're building things, and you're using those things to try and kick the other team out of the solar system. And then we can backfill with the creativity stuff that we know so well. The tools that let you create stuff. We can say, well, now we can give you all kinds of wonderful tools for creating spaceships of different sorts, and we can give you wonderful tools for creating little miniature planet space bases with reactors on them and domes on them and stuff like that. And so it came from approaching the same problem that we've kind of always approached at Maxis Games backwards. So instead of saying, what are going to be the wonderful tools that we give players, and then we have to figure out what the heck the players are going to do with them, we said, here's what you're going to do with them. You're going to make spaceships, and you're going to make space bases, and you're going to use those to win the game. And then we can say, okay, cool. Now we can say why you're building things and give you a much more kind of goal-directed creativity.
Okay. That's quite a cool way to approach it, I think. I'm going back to like Spore and like maybe like you said, like the gameplay and all that. I had never got to the space area myself, but a lot of people did kind of say that some areas the gameplay wasn't maybe as rich. Is that the right word? As it
Yeah.
could have been maybe in some areas. I think that's what some people said about it. So it's quite cool to see how you're approaching the gameplay of a space simulation in that way. And do you have any idea of what platforms you're targeting? Would it just be like PC, Mac, and where it'll be available? Hopefully, if all goes to plan.
So right now we've got PC and Mac builds, and we've actually even kicked out Linux builds every now and then.
Oh, fantastic!
And you can go to atomicspacecommand.net and sign up for the alpha, and we'll send you a key to download it. In the next month or so, we'll stick it up onto Steam as well.
Oh, awesome!
Not for money yet. We'll just stick it up there so that people can use Steam to download it and chat with us and stuff like that. But eventually, we'll probably make console version. We'll make console versions and we'll make mobile versions of it. But that's far out. The most important thing right now is to just get a good Mac build and a PC build out. And those are the builds that we've made available for people. So if you want to go get the build and play it, if you've got a Mac or a PC, you're in business.
Absolutely. Thanks for the love for the Mac as well, because a lot of people can sometimes turn a blind eye to that. So it's a lot easier being able to do that instead of having to boot into Windows and all of that malarkey to give it a go. The alpha so far is quite awesome. I haven't played it for a few weeks. I played it a bit when you first launched it and really enjoyed playing about and kind of working out how everything worked then. So it's quite cool to see the progress you're doing on Atomic Space Command.
We haven't really, we're not committing to an every Thursday build, but so far for the last few weeks, we've been putting out a fresh build every Thursday with new features. And like I said, the one that's going to come out this Thursday is a big one for us because it's the first one that enables real internet play.
Okay, that'd be really good to see how people try that and respond to that. So hopefully plenty of people will sign up.
Yes.
That'd be great. Okay. I think that's kind of everything in my mind that I've kind of got that I wanted to ask. So anything in particular you wanted to say about Atomic Space Command or to everyone that's listening to the interview?
Well, just thank you for your continued interest. It's the reason that we make games for people like you to play them. And we want to hear what you have to think about it. And we want to have you playing the games and giving us feedback. So yeah, thanks for paying attention. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. No, thank you very much for working on it as well, because it's always great to see what, obviously, loads of people on this website love things like Sims, SimCity, and simulation titles. So it's great to see what Maxis alumni are doing in a new team and what you're working on. So
great.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dan.
Awesome. Thank you very, very, very much for doing this interview today, kind of covering everything and your new game. And hoping everything goes really, really well for that. And we're going to keep following the progress of Atomic Space Command and letting everybody know what's happening.
Thanks, Dan. And yeah, I'll ping you when there's fresh builds available as well.
Ah, fantastic. Awesome. I definitely will start playing more of those. I'm going to put some time aside to do that, I think.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Thank you very much for doing this once again. And hopefully we'll speak sometime in the future.
Sounds great. Bye-bye.